And joining me now in St. Petersburg, Vache Gabrielyan, Deputy Prime Minister from the Republic of Armenia, and also he's the Minister of International Economic Integration and Reforms. Welcome to our program.
It's my pleasure being here.
Also joining us in the studio from Armenia as well, we have Mr. Alexander Khachaturyan, who is the CEO of Center for Strategic Initiatives. Welcome as well.
Pleasure to be here.
Integration seems to be the word for your work, and that is also the word when it comes to infrastructure building and the Eurasian Economic Corridor Russia has proposed. When you look at infrastructure building, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, what are the things you are looking at from your country's perspective?
Well, we are looking at roads, connectivity, and connectivity is not only roads, but it's also electrical networks that will help us to trade energy. It is pipelines, it's data connectivity. So in all of these aspects, we looked at better integration with the world, both Eurasian Economic Union, Middle East, Europe, and as you know, all the roads now take to China.
Yes, indeed. That's a great quote of Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Khachaturyan, let me ask you, it is not just the Eurasian Economic Corridor, but also Belt and Road Initiative proposed earlier by China, but China wished it could be a platform everybody could join, not just for China, but for the rest of the world. How are you weighing all of these ideas at the same time?
Well, actually, I don't think there is a conflict between all these ideas. It's just the way of finding the synergy between all of them. And the countries like Armenia should be flexible in actually identifying the ways of cooperating under each and every initiative that is made available to us.
What exactly is the flexibility you're talking about here?
Let me take the question.
Please.
The issue is with One Belt, One Road initiative. You are actually fostering trade routes. And trade routes is something that is about synergy. And there are different ways of these routes going up, and we appreciate that in Chinese vision, this is not only one road going one place. And within that, we think that not only Kazakhstan, Russia, or other countries, Armenia as well as Georgia, our neighbor, can fit into this framework. And particularly, we have proposed to our Chinese colleagues to look also at one part that is taking the easiest way or shortest way in the southern part if you come to Persian Gulf, and if you take the road through Iran to Black Sea and we build a communication there, it will be the cheapest way actually to get from Europe to China or from China to Europe, whichever you prefer.
There seems to be a lot of competition already about where the roads should go and how it goes through different countries, and what would that mean for the competitive edges of these countries. Certainly with your word, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Armenia wants to have an edge over there, but what about your competitiveness in terms of others who are also looking at this possibility?
We're just asking to count costs.
As simple as that?
As simple
what
as
about that cost? Talk about it.
The cost is, we believe that if we are going to imagine that there is going to be a large trade flow through the southern road, if China brings through sea to Persian Gulf, from there to Europe, if you go to that particular line of railway that we propose to build, it will be the cheapest. I cannot now remember all the details, but comparatively it was cheaper and more affordable.
Options could also cause some different concerns from the parties of cooperation. They would wonder whether you are choosing them as the first choice or rather as the last resort, and whether conditions can be created for the right way with all of these investments. Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, will you talk about the road initiative? How would you elaborate on all of these concerns?
Well, it's not something that one person decides. At the end of the day, there is feasibility. And people have to look at numbers and say, if we do this, will business use this? We can build a wonderful infrastructure and nobody is going to use them. What's the use of it? So we have to talk to people, and we have to also see what type of goods can flow there. There is also significant interest from our Chinese colleagues to mineral resources in our country. And they are very much interested in copper production, etc. So if also these projects come to fruition, we believe that it will be a very important argument, because it's not only the infrastructure, but also the goods that should be transported by that infrastructure. And we very much hope for that not only One Belt One Road, but also Chinese presence will be larger in our mining industry.
But some have different views about China's presence in different parts of the world. Some say it's a threat, some say it's also a Marshall Plan, some say this is going to be the soft power demonstration of China, this and that. You know all of these arguments. So, Mr. Khachaturyan, can you help us to understand from Armenia's perspective, how do you see these arguments? Do they really matter to your decision?
Well, I think it's a matter of negotiation with a partner.
Great point.
Because, I mean, there is no one single position on a very. You should sit at a table, look at different aspects of the negotiation of the deal, and then come to a conclusion. So what we're going to do, we propose to every Chinese company to sit at the table with us and openly negotiate. There's no distinction for us, Chinese, Arabic, whatever.
Yeah.
Politics is not important anymore. Is that what it is?
Politics are important, but we are not afraid of Chinese takeover. There are much more of Armenians in the world.
Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, of course, your country, Armenia, is looking at different political and economic development options with Russia, with China, and also with Iran. What do you make of the balance that you need to take?
It's actually a very good question, and it has been the credo of Armenian authorities that we are not in the either-or camp, but we are in both camp. And as being members of Eurasian Economic Union, we at the same time have completed our negotiations and new deep and extended agreement with the European Union, which will be signed at summit in Brussels in November. At the same time, we are actively pursuing our economic and cultural interests in the Middle East. And Iran is our neighbor for several thousand years. And we have been working with them great. And now within Eurasian Economic Union, we are in talks with them about free trade regime. By the way, Eurasian Economic Union is also in negotiations with China about trade agreement. And recently, the head of the Commission visited China, and they had very fruitful cooperation. We hope that we can go further than non-preferential trade agreement.
Even though people have questions about globalization, but this is, from your answer, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, a very globalized world we're talking about here. Having said that, though, the directions of our world, with all the challenges that we are facing right now, and the dramatic geopolitical changes we're seeing right now, really give us a lot of imagination, I'm sure, for a think tank like yours, Mr. Khachaturyan. It's going to be a very richful time, I would say, to think about some of the ideas your country can play with and to walk down. What are some of these scenarios, if I could ask you about that?
Well, there's this new term that we call glocal. So it's both global and local. So you need to look at everything from both perspectives. What are the global trends and how you fit in those trends, and what are the local trends and how you adjust them to the global trends. So basically what we're looking at is considering, for instance, the fourth industrial revolution that's happening all over the world.
That's right.
We need to be aware of it, and we need to adjust ourselves to those realities. So it's not about politics, it's about just, the technology is moving so fast that you need to adjust to that reality. So Armenia should be part of it.
Several layers of things, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister. Also share some of your wisdom with us. First of all, collapse of the Berlin Wall created the first round of dramatic change. Secondly, you see what is going on right now with the geopolitics of major players. Dramatic change as well. Nobody knows where the direction is. It coupled with the technology, as Mr. Khachaturyan earlier mentioned, not to mention the internal politics that's going on in our own countries. So it seems to be a fascinating time, but also confusing time. Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, how are you figuring out your daily necessities and also the future directions?
Well, there is an old Chinese saying about living in changing times.
There is a Chinese saying about living in changing times.
So we are in a situation where times are changing and they are changing fast. And we have to understand that it is a constant event. It's not something that we can settle and think that we are safe for now and let's think about change after 20 years. These days are over. So the day we settle, we think about new change. I'm not going to claim that we are so large and powerful that we are going to solve all the questions before they arise.
Right.
But at least we are trying to deal with it through people, and that's the only way you can deal with it, have capable people.